I followed a link I had paid for and it took 3 hops to land. The page it finally reached was a category listing. The article I had bought a mention inside was not on it anywhere. Every check I had running said that link was healthy. It resolved. It returned a 200 at the end of the chain. A crawler ticked it green and moved on. That placement had been wrong for about 5 months, and the only reason I found it was that I was auditing something else entirely. I buy placements and I sell them, and I keep written ledgers in both directions now. So when I say redirects are the quietest way to lose a link you paid for, that comes off my own rows rather than off somebody's blog post. What a redirect actually does. People talk about redirects as if they are free. Move the page, put a rule in, everything carries over, nobody notices. The first part is roughly true. The last part is where the money goes. A permanent redirect, a 301, tells everything on the other side that this address is now that address forever. Update your records. Links pointing at the old URL get understood as pointing at the new one. Most of what the old page had comes across. Most, not a guaranteed all, and I will come back to that because the honest answer about how much is less satisfying than people want it to be. A temporary redirect, a 302, says something completely different. It says the real page is still the old address and we are only sending you elsewhere for now, so keep the old one on file. That distinction matters for about a fortnight, and then it stops mattering for entirely the wrong reason. The temporary one nobody ever removes. This is the pattern I see more than any other on sites I have been asked to look at and on my own. Somebody puts in a 302 because it is the cautious choice while they are mid-migration. It is meant to be up for 2 weeks. Then the person who set it moves on, or the ticket closes, or the launch goes fine and everyone stops thinking about it. 3 years later, that 302 is still sitting there. The old address is still officially the page. The new one is a detour that everything has been explicitly told not to commit to. Nobody catches it because from a browser, the two are indistinguishable. You type the old URL, you land on the new page, done. The entire difference lives in a header no human reads. If you want to see it without touching a terminal, open the Network tab, load the old address, and read the first row instead of the last one. The status code is sitting right there. That first row is the only place it ever appears. I have found these on properties I own. Not many, but the ones I found had been up long enough that I could not remember putting them there. If you are moving something and you know it is not coming back, say so. Use the permanent one. A 302 you leave up for 2 years is a lie you told a machine that believed you. Chains, and the bit everyone repeats. A chain is when the old address sends you to a second address, which sends you to a third. It happens by accumulation rather than by decision. You move a page in 2020, restructure the folder in 2024, change the domain after that, and now the original link runs through all 3 rules in sequence. What everyone says is that you lose a slice of value at every hop. I have repeated that line myself. I cannot show you a measurement of it on any property I own, and I am not going to pretend I can. What I can measure is time. Every hop is a full round trip before a single byte of the actual page arrives. On a real mobile line with weak signal, which I can test cheaply because I run mobile proxy lines on carrier SIMs, 3 hops is something you feel, and the failure that genuinely cost you is duller than decay. Chains break in the middle. Somebody tidies the redirect table 2 years later, deletes rule 2 of 5 because it looked orphaned, and everything upstream of it now ends in a 404. The link that survived 2 migrations dies during a cleanup, so flatten them when you find them. Point the original address straight at the current one. It is a 5-minute job and it removes something that will otherwise be deleted one day by a person with good intentions. The check nobody runs. Here is the one that actually loses money, and it is neither the status code nor the hop count. It is where the thing lands. A redirect can be perfectly formed. Permanent, 1 hop, 200 at the end. Clean in every tool you own, and the destination can have nothing to do with what the link was about. The common version, a product page gets folded into the category it lived in. The individual page for that item is gone, and everything pointing at it now arrives at a listing of 40 other items. The person who clicked wanted one specific thing. They got a shelf. The worst version, somebody writes a single blanket rule, sending every dead URL on the site to the home page. I have written elsewhere about why that is dishonest to the reader who clicked. The mechanical consequence is the part that belongs here. A redirect to a page that does not answer the original question gets treated as if you deleted the page anyway. The rule bought you nothing. What it bought was invisibility, mostly from yourself, because your 404 count went to zero. That is the shape of the whole problem. A redirect landing somewhere unrelated is a delete with better manners. What this does to a placement you paid for. Now the commercial case, which is the reason I care about any of it. You pay a few hundred for a do follow link inside an article on somebody else's site. It goes live, you log it, you move on. 8 months later, that site runs a consolidation. Two thin guides covering the same subject get merged into one better guide, and the weaker URL is pointed at the survivor with a permanent redirect. Good housekeeping. I would do the same. Your link is still on a page. The page still exists in a sense. But the article you chose, the one whose topic matched what you were pointing at, is now an address that forwards somewhere else. If your paragraph made it into the surviving article, you got lucky. If it was in the one that got merged away, it was probably cut during the edit. And what you own is a redirect to a page you were never on. Nothing tells you which. No email, no dashboard. The seller is usually not being dishonest either. They were improving their site and they had no list of who had links inside what. I know they had no list because mine only started in July this year. Everything on my sites before that date is reconstructed from memory and email searches. So here is the confession. I have merged and pruned pages on properties I own without ever checking whether somebody had paid to appear in them. I cannot tell you how many placements I broke doing it. The ledger that would have answered the question arrived years too late. How I check it now? 4 steps, and the whole thing scripts in an afternoon. Request the URL without following anything automatically, and print every hop. You want the list? And curl with the right flag hands you each status and each location header in order. Read the status of each hop as you go. A 302 sitting in a chain that has been in place for years is a flag by itself. Then take the final URL and open it like a person. Is this page about the thing the link was about? That question has no tool and no APE behind it. It takes 15 seconds, and it is the only step that catches the failure I opened with. Last, and this is the one people skip, search the destination page for your own URL. The redirect told you the page moved. It never told you your link came with it. I have written a separate piece on the full check after purchase, the anchor drift and the rel attribute and the rest of it. This is the redirect shaped slice of the same job. What to put in the email. Before money moves, one line, not a contract, just a sentence they have to answer. If this article gets merged or moved, does my link move with it? And will you tell me? Then a second line if you can get away with it. No blanket redirect of my placement into a hub or a category page. Most sellers will say yes to both, and most of them will forget. That is fine, and enforcement was never the point. The point is that you have something written down to reference, and you have learned something from how they answered. A seller who says of course that never happens here has not run a site through a restructure. A seller who says if we merge that guide your link goes into the new one and I will make sure of it has done this before and knows what it costs. The position I will argue about. A placement that redirects is dead in my ledger until I have opened the destination and read it. Not flagged. Not pending review. Dead, out of the count, in the same row as a 404. People tell me that is harsh, because the link technically resolves. Resolving is exactly the problem. Resolving is the property that stopped anyone looking at it. A 404 on a bot link gets chased inside a week because it is loud. A redirect into a category page sits there for a year with everybody satisfied. The practical version of this is one extra column in the ledger. Last destination read, with a date next to it. If that cell is empty, the link does not go in the total, whatever the crawler says about it. The limit, I will be straight about what I do not know. I cannot tell you how much a 301 actually passes. Everyone quotes a figure at you. The figures shift depending on which year and which employee statement you happen to be reading, and I have never run an experiment on my own properties clean enough to add anything to that argument. What I can tell you is the difference between a link arriving somewhere relevant and a link arriving somewhere unrelated. That gap I have watched on real pages and it is not a rounding error. The rule underneath all of it: a redirect is a move, it is not a fix. It does not undelete a page. It cannot manufacture relevance. All it does is tell everything on the other side where the thing went, and that only works if the thing actually went somewhere. So if you cannot name the destination and say out loud what it is about, you have not moved that page. You deleted it and left a forwarding address to a room with nobody in it. On my own sites, the routine is now boring. Before I merge or remove anything, I check the ledger for who has a link inside it. I pick a destination that answers the same question, and where there is no such destination, I leave the 404 standing and take the hit. A loud problem gets fixed, a quiet one just gets older. The exact commands I use to follow a chain, and the 2 lines I put in an email before I pay for a placement, are at theseodesk.com. Subscribe for more on link building.